Hello, it's Mr. Doan here, and Ruben, one of our Year 3 pupils, sat on a few cushions, so he's a little bit higher. And today we're going to talk through a sequence on focusing on improving reading fluency and a short intervention that can be done to support your children to improve their reading fluency. And me and Ruben are also going to have a go at this because Ruben's made outstanding progress in this area, and hopefully we'll see how much he's improved. So, a teaching sequence focusing on improving fluency involves these 4 steps. The first step is model fluent reading, and that is showing children how to read fluently. The teacher is the expert, the pupil is the novice, and we're trying to build those mental models for that pupil so it becomes a lot more automatic for them. The second step is to survey the text, and that is pointing out clues you are using to read in that way. And that could be punctuation, could be grammar, just as a few examples. The third step is to support the reading. And this is demonstrating fluency by reading with the children. And that's, for example, using echo or choral reading. And they're the 2 strategies we're using today. And finally, it's about providing opportunities for practice. We know how important practice is to embed new learning. And one of Rosenshine's really important principles is to have that practice and embed that over time. In a reading fluency lesson, the member of staff models effective and expressive reading a number of times and points out the clues that lead them to read the text that way. The group are given multiple opportunities to practice reading aloud and improve their fluency, expression, and phrasing. We can express this in a number of steps. And it is a 5-step model we're going to express this in and share with you now. Okay, so step 1 is using the stepped approach to read the first section of the text aloud. Step 2 is to model the reading and survey the text and draw out clues you are using to read it that way. Step 3 is then rereading the text. This is reading to the group. Step 4 is reading with the group, and the examples here are echo and choral reading techniques. And finally, the group read together, perhaps in pairs or in groups, and lots of practice happens then, using the model you have given them as a teacher. Now, there is an example planning format for this and outline, which can be found lower down on this website on the tab that we're on in the Fluency intervention. If you click that, you'll be able to get a PDF version of this and a PDF version of the 5-step model. Okay, so the reason we've got Ruben with us is because we assessed Ruben at the beginning of the year, and Ruben didn't really know this was happening, and Ruben achieved a score of 4 on this assessment grid. As we can see, 4 marks indicates that there is support needed and extra intervention needs to take place. And that is what has happened with Ruben. And hopefully you will see the fruits of that intervention and the impact that intervention has had. He did score 1 mark on each of the 4 areas: expression and volume, phrasing, smoothness, and pace. And again, you can find this document in tab 2. Around why reading fluency is important. And this is a really important go-to document that I would remind you all to keep reverting back to. Okay, so the text we're using today is called Boo. And this is a screenshot of the text, but I have taken a small section of it for our 5-step model. Just as a reminder, these are the 5 steps we're going to go through. We would usually do it in a group, but to make it easy today, we're just doing it one-on-one and using Ruben as an example. No pressure, Ruben, but I know you'll do a superb job with myself on this. If we do make any errors, we're all human and we apologise now, but we're going to keep the recording rolling throughout and hopefully show you the impact this can have on your pupils. So step 1 is to model the reading to the group. And this is where I, as the expert, are going to model this to Ruben. Boo! She didn't like it at all when her father had to go down to London and, for the first time, she had to sleep alone in the old house. So there is step 1. It may be that you do this multiple times depending on your group or the children you're working with, but just for today, we're going to just do each of the steps once. Step 2 is where we're going to survey the text and point out the clues that we're using. Okay, Ruben. So the first, we're going to look at this text today, and we're going to pick out some of the features, some of the grammatical features and some of the punctuation that's used. We're going to start with that exclamation mark. And this exclamation mark tells me that I need to read this with excitement. It's like I'm jumping out and surprising someone. Okay, my turn, your turn. Boo!
Boo!
What a start. Look at that for expression. Amazing, Ruben. No pressure now. We've started on the right foot. Okay. The next thing that I'm going to share with Ruben is this natural slight pause after all. Now, there isn't a comma here, Ruben, so it isn't a long pause, but to allow us to breathe and to allow the sentence to flow, there will be a slight pause here. And I will keep coming back to this when I model, when we do some echo reading. Okay, the next feature, if you wanted to have a practice at this point, you may want to, but just for today's session, we're just going to share the features, then move on to the echo and choral reading. The next feature, it is behind the camera of us, so I'm not sure if you can see this, but this is just a reminder, Ruben, that sentences run on past the end of the line, so keep on reading. Don't stop at go. Just because that's the end of the line, we need to carry on to the next line on down. I think you already know that, but it is just a reminder. And it's really important to point out to some of our children, because as you will know, some children do stop there, and it's the same when they write as well. What do we do at the end of the line? Let's go on to the next one. Okay, the next thing we're going to look at is adverbial phrases between the commas. And this chunks the words together as a unit. And that adverbial phrase there is for the first time. And I think you might have used those in class. Yeah, you know about those, don't you? Very impressive. And this is why it's so important, that link between reading and writing. Because some of the things we taught in class, we need to do in our reading as well. Okay, and finally, we have a comma after and. And that means that we pause there, and is given a bit more emphasis as well. And we'll see that in my example next when we go on to reading the text again. So that's step 2. We're going to move on to step 3, which is to reread the text to the group. Boo! She didn't like it at all when her father had to go down to London and, for the first time, she had to sleep alone in the old house. Okay, so step 3. And now this is where we get Ruben involved, because step 4 is where we're going to do an echo read. Okay, Ruben, so you're going to read after me using the echo read approach. I want you to read after me as close to my model as possible. So we're going to read this in sections. My turn, your turn. Boo!
Boo!
She didn't like it at all.
She didn't like it at all
when her father had to go down to London and...
when her father had to go down to London and...
for the first time...
for the first time...
she had to sleep alone in the old house.
She had to sleep alone in the old house.
Amazing. Very, very impressive. And you've used some of those features that we recognised in step 2 to read this with some great expression and really good pace as well, even though there were pauses. And some excellent phrasing as well. I can see some of those features from the assessment really coming through now with Ruben. We'll now work on the smoothness, and I think this will come next, because next, this is the tricky part, we're going to use the choral technique. This is where we're going to read together, and you are going to follow with my reading stick. So we hopefully keep in time. Are you ready for this? Okay, in 3, 2, 1. Boo! She didn't like it at all when her father had to go down to London and, for the first time, she had to sleep alone in the old house. It does take some getting used to choral reading. But you can see me and Ruben have mastered it. And a lot of these features we're using across the curriculum and as part of our quality first teaching. So a lot of the pupils are used to this now because they're doing it daily, whether it be in a reading lesson, or it be in English and in the foundation subjects as well. Some of these steps you may want to do multiple times as well, and that is absolutely fine. We would recommend that because it needs to be embedded into their memory from that working to long-term memory. Okay, and Step 5. This is where children practice reading together, and we can do this in lots of different ways. It might be in pairs, and it might be using the echo read, where we take it in turns to echo the phrase in our intonation, our expression. It could be choral reading, where we read the text together, one being the lead, one following, but it also could be other techniques, and we've put lots of techniques in the Quality First Teaching tab, and you will see there are different ways to improve fluency for your pupils, so you might want to use those. But the main event isn't me. The main event isn't this fluency presentation. The main event is Ruben, and I'm going to let Ruben finish us off by using all of that learning that he's just done in this session and reading that section of text with all of those features, and ensuring he uses expression, volume, phrasing, smoothness, and pace. Are you ready, Ruben? Don't forget those features that we spoke about when you're ready in your own time. This is your final one. Show all the teachers around the area how brilliant you are.
Boo! She didn't like that at all. When her father had to go down to London and, for the first time, she had to sleep alone in the old house.
Wow. Very, very impressive. Fantastic, Ruben. Are you proud of yourself?
Yeah.
You should be proud of yourself, because I'm very proud of you today. Thank you for watching our reading intervention session. We hope it's been useful. As always, if you do have any questions, want to see in action, just drop me an email, and I'm sure we can sort something out. Are we going to wave goodbye to the camera?
Bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye now.